These are similar guys, Danny, because they're both aging. Ertz is 34 years old. Wagner's also 34, but is going to be 35 before the start of the season. And both of them are declining physically in their skill set, but they can still help you. Wagner has played at a higher level. There's no doubt about that. But the question is, if you get to bring one of them back, Ertz, who more directly helps Jaden Daniels, Wagner, who was their leading tackler, which do you prioritize?
It's Wagner for me, and it's closer than maybe I thought upon initial inspection. As soon as I heard it, I go, oh, it's Wagner. I mean, Ertz got every ounce out of what he had left this year. The previous track record for him, and this is why I don't say I was dubious at the signing. It didn't cost very much, and I said that's smart. Give a young tight end a mentor in the room. It doesn't affect you. It's not one of those things where you're stuck with a $30 million dead cap hit or something like that if it doesn't work out over the next couple of years. Help Jaden Daniels, acclimate to the offense, familiarity with Kingsbury's system, no problem. But the track record was I want him to do something else because this guy always gets hurt. This guy's always limited, always has something nagging. He's always slowed. And all he did was show up and be second on the team in receptions, targets, the whole 9 yards. He was available and got better down the stretch. He was better in the second half of the year than he was in the first in terms of impact and some things he was doing. I mean, you heard it in the that Atlanta game that they won in overtime. This right here is where they look for Zach Ertz. They look for Zach Ertz, game-winning touchdown in traffic. Boom, you're going to the postseason. So it's closer than I thought. I think Wagner has more and offers more going forward. And that's kind of my only nod there. Both in leadership and in terms of quarterback in that defense, I think what he can't do isn't as big a deal as what Ertz won't be able to do. If that's how I'm quantifying it.
I actually think that I am leaning toward Ertz, and I'm surprised to the point you made. When we first thought about this, I thought, well, it's obviously Wagner. But my logic that I've come to is I think that if one of them falls off substantially next year, I'd rather have paid and kept Ertz around where I can plug in either Ben Sinnott or John Bates or some other speedy weapon type. Like they kept Cole Turner on their practice squad all year. I don't know if he can block or what he's good at or what he isn't when he's in line. But whether it's Turner or somebody else, you could stash a guy like that on your practice squad that could actually make catches and be an athlete and help you a little bit in terms of weaponry offensively. Whereas I think if Ertz hits that wall, you just kind of move him to the side. You've got three other guys at the position that can fill in, and you got running back and receiver and other ways around. I think that if Bobby Wagner were to run into a wall next year, it'd be a big problem defensively. So I almost don't want to be left holding the bag in an age 35 season for that year where the regression happens. Because it's not always a staircase, which you could make the case with both of these guys were kind of on the staircase anyway. But it doesn't always mean, well, they're in a good place now, so 2 or 3 years from now is when they're not going to be able to play well. Like, it could be October, and Ertz could look nothing like he did this season, right? I mean, it could be November, and we're going, that's not the Bobby Wagner that was on this team making 132 tackles last year. Now, make no mistake about it. We are choosing one of the two. And so, by nature, when you juxtapose these two options, we're kind of arguing against one. I would bring them both back if the price is right.
Same here, by the way.
But I think my answer on Ertz is I'm a little less worried about him biting me in the butt than Wagner because I'm preparing for a fall off from both and that age, and I could just better prepare for it with a tight end.
I don't hate that reasoning. I mean, to me, I'm going off the fact that I feel like we just got really lucky with Ertz playing all 17 games. I don't see that happening again. And maybe that's not fair. Maybe he's found something. Maybe he, whether it's an off season or different training regimen or whatever, but you look at games missed over the last several seasons, significant. You're talking about 5, 6, 7, 10 games at one point getting hurt. And now he's about to turn 35. Same with Wagner, by the way, they're the same age. So I don't know. That's my skepticism there is if I get what let's say for the sake of argument, sight unseen, if I get what I just got, you can guarantee me that for both guys, what's more valuable? It might be the tight end, might be the safety blanket. It might be that, 3rd and 4 when everything's close or that goal line type stuff. Yeah, that's really, really helpful for a young quarterback that's going to have bigger challenges even maybe next year in terms of schedule, defenses, the league making adjustments against you, et cetera. But I just don't buy it. And maybe that's not fair.
Ertz and Wagner are both leaders of men. They're both also vocal and outspoken when needed. Supposedly, Wagner is a little more diffident than you'd think. Like when he gave that big speech where he stepped up in front of the team and gave the really nice, like, let's not let this season go off the rails, rah-rah speech. He was basically asked to, in a sense, and it was important and significant because he normally doesn't do it. If you've seen after the game, a couple of times when he got a game ball and they toss him the ball and they're all yelling speech, 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 he's like, oh, y'all know me. I already spoke a couple weeks ago or whatever. Like, he doesn't want to be this loquacious guy who's out there just screaming all the time. I think Ertz, well, he's a little more selective. You see him doing a lot of interviews. He's on
way
some
more
podcasts.
Sure, yeah.
Like, he's out there a little bit more. This is from earlier today on The Fan. Joel Corey with B. Mitch and Finley discussing the possible contracts. He's a contracts expert for these players. So let's start with what he said about Zach Ertz.
Yeah, Ertz was practically the lowest paid starting tight end on a veteran contract at $3 million last year as the base value. If you look at him statistically, he's not going to get this type of money, but it compares very favorably to Pat Freiermuth statistically. Hunter Henry, who is an older guy, Freiermuth signed for $12.1 million per year, but that was an extension of his rookie contract. Hunter Henry's at $9 million per year. I don't think you're going to go there.
That's Joel Corey on Zach Ertz as a potential AAV. He ultimately said $7-8 million for a 1-year deal, which seems rich to me. I mean, he made 3 and change, I think, last year. So doubling that plus feels like a lot. I know he stayed healthy finally, and he put up some decent numbers. So what about Bobby Wagner? I mean, if Ertz is making $7-8 million, Wagner's probably in line to make more than that. Coming off
6.
Yeah, not only did he make 6, but he was a Pro Bowl player who was a second-team All-Pro.
Last year, you had Levante David sign a 1-year deal for $8.5 million, up to $10 million with incentives. You had Demario Davis signed for 2 years, average $8.625 million per year. Almost 14 was fully guaranteed at signing on the 2 years. Bobby's better than both of those guys, always has been. The cap has gone up 10%. At a minimum, to me, you adjust that deal for cap inflation and go from there. To me, I think he could ask for more, but to me, that should be his floor.
$10 million maybe.
Yeah, I mean, if it's a 10% raise over what he just did, or if it's a raise over Levante David or otherwise, it makes sense to me as the cap has gone up. I mean, again, the track record here is he's missed 1 game over the last handful of seasons. 1 was rest, as Seattle had either all been eliminated or clinched a playoff spot. Since they've gone to 17 games, he doesn't miss time. He's a tackling machine. He is who he is. What he doesn't do anymore that well, you're still getting something positive. Does that make sense? Like, this would be, who knows? Let's say he was in his prime at 26 years old with 170 tackles, where he's ranging all over the place, doing everything under the sun, Swiss Army knife, who's just destroying people. That doesn't exist anymore. What you do have, though, is still a very useful player that's dependable. The variable for me is the availability. Now, of course, freak stuff happens. It's sports. It's football. It's such a violent thing. But at that spot, to be that durable kind of tells you got a durable guy.
Well, he made more impact plays for Washington this past season than he did the year before with Seattle, when he led the NFL with 183 tackles. Think about that. He made 50 fewer tackles. 50. That's like 4 or 5 games worth.
Yeah.
Fewer tackles despite playing in every game both seasons from 2 years ago to last year. But he had more passes defended, batted balls. He had more forced fumbles. He had more fumble recoveries. His sack totals were down from 3.5 to 2. But otherwise, tackles for loss, quarterback hits, like almost every category, the numbers went up in Washington. Andre in Woodbridge, you're on Grant and Danny. If you can bring back either Ertz or Wagner, who would you prioritize?
Yeah, this is a very easy question for me. I mean, who's the future Hall of Famer?
Wagner.
Who's the person? Yeah, who was the person who led the team or was amongst the team leader when it comes to tackles?
Well, by the way, I think they're both future Hall of Famers, but I get your point. Is Wagner's one of the great linebackers ever?
Who recovered the football against Tampa Bay, in the divisional championship?
But none of that's speaking to 2025 and being 35 years old. I mean, we're not paying him based on his resume.
Here's my last question. Who's the guy who tripped over his defensive lineman when he was trying to catch Saquon Barkley? I can't unsee that. I got to go with Ertz. There's no way we can beat Philadelphia. Again, if we have to choose 2, there's no way. I mean, the elephant in the room, literally and figuratively, is Philly. And we can't beat Philly as is with Wagner in the middle.
Oh, so that was a swerve there.
I didn't see that coming.
I did not either.
Pulled the rug from underneath me. I'm like, yeah, all right, so he's going Wagner. He's like, we can't do Wagner. How about that?
I mean, but he's referencing, he mentioned the play where he the first play of the game against the Eagles.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to judge him on one of his worst plays. Unlucky play at that, by the way. He kind of stumbled and fell. And who was it? Who was the D lineman that fell down that he tripped on? Was that Dante Fowler or Cleveland Farrell? I
can't remember.
It was Fowler?
Fowler, maybe.
Fowler fell on the ground. Wagner got scooped up.
Yeah, it was like bowling pins colliding.
Exactly.